Welcome to Laying the Leadership Foundation podcast, where Stephanie and I discuss how we are building a leadership development program and hear from guests on their experiences.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Laying the Leadership Foundation podcast. This week, we have the honor of speaking to what I believe is a four-time OVC champion, as a team, a two-time individual champion as well. From Eastern Illinois. Got to give you a little slack there. I am a Murray State racer, so a little bit in that conference, but thankfully didn't have to face you too much as we didn't have a men's track program. But we would like to welcome an NCAA Leadership Development extraordinaire, Lamarr Pottinger, to this week's episode. Thank you for joining us this week, Lamarr.
Great. Thanks, Thomas. I appreciate you throwing that Murray State in there last minute, because that would have been a conversation. But I'll let you slide. As you alluded to, we don't have, you all didn't have a men's track and field team, but you had a great, and you still do have a great women's track and field team. So, but happy to be here today. Yeah,
that's one of those things. We had a freshman athlete, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, Jessica Ribeiro, who was at AIC, fantastic multi, who actually transferred to Murray State. But looking back at your EIU website or roster page, didn't realize our times really crossed over there. I graduated in 14 from Murray, so obviously didn't know you, but wish I had. It's what we've seen you go on to do, and been exciting and happy to see your growth.
Absolutely.
All right, so Lamarr, you are currently at the NCAA, as Tom said, as a leadership development extraordinaire. So could you just give us a little bit of background on your journey through athletics and how you came to the position that you are in now?
Yeah, definitely. So I was a ambitious student athlete as I got into the ranks of college athletics. Originally, I was, just trying to find my way and did every sport I could within high school. So I got won some Ironman award because I found a way to do cross country and football in the same season. The caveat is I only ran one cross country meet, but that's out in public now, right?
You still did it.
Yeah. So, for me, I always knew that I wanted to be connected to sport in some type of way, whether that was being a coach, PE teacher, a sport agent. I'll tell you about that in a second as well. But when I got to Eastern Illinois University, I just wanted to make sure that I was involved in more than just track and field. And luckily, I had opportunities to be involved in the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, some things on campus with student activities. And then, what will kind of take me through my journey here is that I was selected to be in the Student Athlete Leadership Forum in 2011 for the NCAA, which was in Chicago. So took a drive down there knowing that, can't catch a flight out of Charleston, Illinois to Chicago. And myself and one of my teammates at the time went to the forum in Chicago, snow in November. And really it was a transformational experience. I still am in contact with my roommate, my mentor from now 10 years, still in contact, and just a few contacts that I made there literally have been mentors since 2011. So that is when I knew I want to do this. I want to be in college athletics. I want to be an administrator, and I want to work for the NCAA. So I had an opportunity through that mentor to apply for the NCAA postgraduate internship program. Apply, got an interview out of undergrad, didn't get it. And then I pursued a graduate degree at Western Illinois University, where I got my hands in everything, but my primary position was a graduate assistant for academics and life skills. So I did marketing, I did academic, I did life skills. I was the on-court game host for all the promotions, facilities, you name it. I tried to get involved with it at a small FCS school. And then, I experimented with doing a mandatory internship for our program, and I went to do it with the Chicago Sky at the time for the WNBA during the summer, and realized like I love, professional sports and the marketing side of things, but it was, glamorous, but I really wanted to be close to the student athletes and really make that impact of developing them and mentoring them through their collegiate experience. So from there, I had an opportunity to work at Jacksonville University, where I did a similar world of academics, life skills, and a little bit of compliance. Continued to just build programs and build a network, and start to get more involved again with the NCAA Leadership Development programs. I always wanted to apply for anything I was eligible for. So Emerging Leader Seminar, Leadership Academy Workshop, Leadership Institute, the list could go on and on. But from there, I went to Old Dominion University, where I was a director of student athlete development, and then had a similar role, and then transitioned to Texas Tech University, where I was the assistant AD for leadership development as well. And then once the opportunity finally came for me to work for the NCAA Leadership Development, it was hard to not take the opportunity on. So that's kind of the short version, if you will, of how I got to NCAA. Just really staying involved and knowing that this was always going to be a goal of mine to get here through all the things that I've done on campus, and just really enjoy, what I've been able to do here in this role now for a little over 18 months.
Is there any part of athletics that you have not touched? Because it seems like you did everything and became like a jack of all trades.
Yeah, probably, fundraising. That's probably it. But yeah, I definitely have gotten involved, and I wanted to figure out, okay, where do I want to, move forward and have my fit in place in. But if I had to go, do and communications, I can't be a SID. I'm working on my writing and those things there, but I'm not a storyteller on paper. So those are the two areas for sure.
So you've obviously been at some bigger name schools or institutions, obviously the NCAA and Texas Tech, but you've also been at some more of the mid-majors, EIU, Western Illinois, ODU, Jacksonville. I guess what are the big differences, or I guess things that have been easier at different institutions compared to where you, I guess, each other, and what have you been able to take with you when you've gone from job to job?
Yeah, good question. I think the biggest difference outside of just the resources, right, from a financial standpoint for those different institutions, was the the priorities for the student athletes, right? And we know this, but it was really cool to see it, the transition of really taking it from, a Western Illinois student athlete that knows that, their athletic career is going to be done when they graduate. So they're, at least they may not be thinking about it freshman or sophomore year, but that junior and senior year, they're starting to think about, what's next. Versus at Texas Tech, when you got a Olympian or All-American national qualifier track and field student athlete that is focused on going pro after they graduate. And me being a track and field athlete, knowing the process of going pro, I'm like, wow, this is a big difference, because any other school that I've been at that had track and field, they know it's done at year 4, right? Like they know that it's harder to become pro when you're in track and field, just with the many different nuances that come with it. So the priorities of the student athletes was a big difference. But then, some things that were similarities were just the different, or I wouldn't say different, but the similarities there were the need for the development of student athletes. So there was always the need, whether it was at Jacksonville or whether it was at Texas Tech, to develop the student athletes. And what I've learned and taken from each stop is the ability to do a effective kind of change management, if you will, and get buy-in from coaches, administrators, and student athletes. And then also cater to those needs of the student athletes to develop programming is what I've always just kept a theme of just focusing on meeting people where they're at and giving them what they want and need, right? I have all these great ideas and things that I want to do, but at the end of the day, it is what your consumers need and want. And that's a big part of what I learned through my marketing and, promotion and all those things there, background as well.
So you've obviously had the opportunity to obviously be involved in the NCAA leadership programs as a participant, but flipping the roles now that you're on the side of facilitating and helping put on these programs, I guess, do you think going through those different courses helped you to get and to help build these programs that you're now leading? And I guess, what do you think is the biggest difference on being on the opposite side of the fence?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was my main pitch to Didi is that, I've been through these programs and I think I have the ability to help continue to make them really impactful because I've been a participant. So we now have a vision of what we think should happen and the experience, but I've actually been able to see what that has been on the outcome side of things as well. So, I think the leg up is that I have been a participant and have experienced the programs, but also making sure that I continue to lean into my values of being innovative, right? So just because, they always say like, if something isn't broke, don't fix it. I don't believe in that, right? If something needs improving or renovating, do so, right? And we can always improve or renovate something to make it better, if it was 99.9%, let's get to that 0.1% to make it 100%. And if it was 100%, let's go for 101, right? Let's always push the ceiling without reinventing the wheel. So I'm a big believer in, not reinventing the wheel, but how can we, innovate moving forward? So I think the benefit is that I can see what has been done in the past when I've been a participant, but also bringing that experience to my role now. And like I said before, meeting the needs of our consumers. So we've done significant different creative ideas to be able to get not just the feedback from the surveys from a program when it ended last year or just the last program and taking that, but getting feedback from the participants that are coming into the next program, whether that's a pre-survey or asking questions or developing some type of focus group or task force of, okay, like you got into the career in sports forum now, like what would you like to see or what are you expecting out of this so that we can meet those expectations on the front end versus seeing like, oh, we missed this reading the survey results on the back end.
So you talked a lot about being innovative and challenging yourselves, and COVID brought on so many of those challenges. So how was it to pivot this law program from the in-person to the virtual on your end?
Yeah, definitely. As a side note, Stephanie, I promised my team that I would stop using the word pivot in 2020. And I think I'm at 5 that I've used it now, but in 2020, we know we used it a lot. So what I say is either reroute or recalculate. So, specifically for the law program, as you all know, it's a lot that goes into that program, right? It's a lot of detail, it's a lot of content, it's a lot of learning, training within it. So what we did is we looked at, okay, originally we have this two-part in-person program that are 2.5 days each. That's really intensive, with a lot of information. How do we fit that in a virtual format, knowing that, there's opportunities through Zoom, but there's challenges as well through Zoom. So what we really we examined the amount of hours that it took us to do the training versus the amount of hours we would need the participants to really focus in and lean into the process. So we joke about it in law that law was definitely a graduate course, and you all definitely graduated and got your master's degree or a PhD, however hard you
Waiting for
felt
that
it was.
certificate.
Right? However hard you felt it was, it was either a master's or a doctorate program. But we did look at it from that standpoint, like, okay, like we can't do this in 1 month, like 1 day a week. Like we have to, for it to be effective, we have to make it a almost year-long process for everyone to be able to do it. And we thought about, okay, well, this is great because now, the benefits of the 2-part program is that we would give you some information, you would go back to your campuses, apply it, or try to at least get some things started. Now it's real time. The next day after a Thursday session, you can go back and apply it, or whatever it is that week. You're in your element right there versus being off site and being able to go back to it as well. So we thought about that as a benefit moving into it as well. But we wanted to make sure that it was feasible, but also still provide that kind of pressure and intensity that the program does give, because we do believe that you have to pull and stretch people for them to grow, right? And that's part of our intentionality behind the scenes. As much as you all may have been frustrated with us on some things, whether it's pre-work or presentation assignments, everything was built by design. I'll say 99% was built by design. And then, so we wanted to make sure that we gave it enough time to breathe throughout the year, but also make sure that we hit on certain points, that we gave breaks for you all to digest the information and apply it as well. So that was kind of our approach in looking at, rerouting our direction. And now it's given us an opportunity to look forward and see, like, okay, well, it's definitely beneficial to have people in person, right, and meet, but it's definitely beneficial to give flexibility and have it be throughout, the year as well. So right now we're in that stage of planning to see how we want to merge the two to make it really an impactful program moving forward.
Well, and that's one of the things, I mean, you used the term rerouting, which the only time I really think about hearing that phrase or that word is when I wanted to use my GPS trying to go somewhere, make the wrong turn or
Yep.
miss the turn or whatever. But I think that's also another way of thinking about it. Well, we're rerouting. That means there's still other ways for us to get to that point. It's just a matter of what way are we going to do it. Is that something you think sort of like a hybrid model, possibly, especially with fall, to where you might have one session in person, but you might have 2 sessions that are virtual? Or how do you think this year of COVID and rerouting will affect the program long term?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, Thomas, of just really getting to the destination, but knowing you might have to take some detours through the process. And that's exactly what we've been doing for 365 days, right? Is figuring out different ways to get to our destination and outcomes of our programs. So yeah, moving forward, whether it's the fall or winter, we're still working on finalizing our schedule. That is the vision of, having some type of in-person, beginning, middle, or end, but then also having a few sessions still online and having that hybrid approach to the program. That way, there's the building of the connection, but also making sure that, we can have an opportunity for participants to separate and focus, right? We all know that there's a million distractions that can happen while you're in the office, your home, wherever it is that you're logging in at. So we want to be able to design our curriculum moving forward that we focus on certain things in person that would benefit from having a really narrow focus and no distractions, and then building out things that we know came up this year, even though the group was really good with attendance and just being engaged, but also, you all are amazing. You did this through COVID, right? So that'll have to shift our mindset to that, we're still going to do our due diligence and provide the curriculum, but now a couple of things there might be less stress moving forward. You already talked about, Thomas, before we started, of these crossover seasons and these different protocols, and just, every day is a new challenge in athletics in general, but in this last year, it was like every hour was a new challenge. So, being able to provide our participants with a flexibility of in-person and hybrid is definitely our goal for the Leadership Academy workshop and potentially, some of our other programs as well.
Now, outside of the NCAA, you're also pretty involved with N4A. So could you talk to us a little bit about how that membership has helped you within your career and I guess which experiences or subcommittees have really impacted you?
NCAA Leadership Development and N4A, I always tell people, has made me who I am within my professional career. If it wasn't for those two combined and separate, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. So I appreciate that question, because N4A, just being a part of, the academic committees, but specifically within the last several years of the Student Athlete Development Committee, or Student Athlete Development Programs and Practices, as it is called now, has really helped me do two main things. One, get involved and meet all different types of people from different institutions and continue to network and brainstorm. But two, also continue to build a certain level of leadership within certain committees. So I was the chair of the Student Athlete Development Committee a couple years back now, in 2019 to 2020. And that experience there allowed me to just continue to lean into my leadership, and then also help others from a large standpoint before I got to the NCAA. That's a big part of my just core value and who I am, is just serving people. So the opportunity to serve as many people on a large platform is something that is dear to my heart. But in general, N4A, the professional development that you get from going to convention every year, the network and family that you build, and just the different opportunities that it presents to get professional development has been, crucial to my development as a practitioner in the field. And moving forward, I'm excited for the direction that they're going of prioritizing professional development, not just for student athlete development, but for everyone in their roles, whether you're a learner specialist, you're a tutor coordinator, your academic advisor, wherever you're at. The field is really growing within the student support services in general. I think N4A is doing a great job of leading and being that national presence for those practitioners.
Well, we know you're a busy man, so we will start to wrap this up. Before we ask you the final question, one other question that I'm always curious about, and from you at the mothership at the NCAA, what are some books that you're reading currently, or ones that you would suggest to read?
Should have gave me a heads up on this question, Thomas. Wow. So I'll suggest a couple books off the top of my head, and then I will tell you what I'm reading now. So I'll suggest Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. That was a book that was really impactful, and just vulnerability is, we talk about it a lot now because of her, but when you read that book, you really get a deep level of knowledge of vulnerability and courage and it's a great personal and professional book. You can apply it to a lot of things. So that really was an impactful book. I'll do the Remix by Lindsay Pollock. Is a great book for multi-generational leadership in the workplace. Great book there. And then I will do The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle, I believe. Really good book, tangible book about culture and learning how to develop and sustain culture within your organizations. What I'm reading now, I'm trying to do a better job of focusing on, one, reading maybe one or two books at a time, and two, finishing the book. So I did a really good job in 2020, and then 2021 started, and I got all these books, and I was like, all right, I gotta focus here. But right now I'm reading The Pause Principle by Kevin Cashman, and it talks about being able to step back to lead forward and really go on your personal leadership journey. So it's a really great book about pausing and reflecting, but also doing that so that you can strategize to be innovative and lead organizations or your teams. And then the other book is Culture Renovation by Kevin Oakes. And it talks about being able to really, what the title says, renovate a culture, not go in and change it or reinvent the wheel, but look at the same way you would do a renovated kitchen, keep some things, but also add some new pieces to it as well. So those are the two books that my goal is to at least finish. Pause Principle by the end of May, and then Culture Renovation I hope to finish by the end of June.
Thank you for that. And do you have any social media handles that our followers could follow you on?
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is Lamarr_lead, and that's where you'll probably catch me the most. I just go on Instagram to watch things. Really, I don't post or do anything much on Instagram, so I rarely give that one out. But Lamarr Lead is my Twitter handle.
Perfect.
And then rounding out our questions, we're going to modify our final question a little bit. So we know that you have multiple irons in the fire right now and lots of programs coming up. So I guess what's one obstacle that you might be going through now or might be coming up here soon that you're excited to challenge and overcome?
Really, I think everyone is going to have this challenge with the resocialization, right? But it's really just the challenge of remembering, figuring out, like, what is it like to do an in-person program, right? What is it like to facilitate and walk around the room and really engage with the participants and, provide physical workbooks or handouts and those things there. I think just being able to adjust to the new normal, because there's some things that we can take from this last year and we can implement it into our in-person programming. But really, I think the biggest obstacle is how do we reconnect, reorganize, and just re-engage our programs to be at the same or better level as they were before COVID hit. So I think that's the biggest obstacle that as a team we're looking at right now, and we're excited to overcome that obstacle. And I think just for me personally is just figuring out different ways to be of service to others, right? I think one thing about being a servant leader is that you don't always focus on yourself. So I'm trying to balance in ways of just making sure that I take care of myself first, always, but making sure that I've realized now that when I take care of myself, I am invincible of taking care of others. So that'll be a continuous obstacle that I will have to overcome moving forward.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Lamarr. And from a racer to a Panther, once again, I appreciate all that you've done. And thankfully, we didn't have a men's track team. Otherwise, we definitely would have lost you guys with your dominant spree there in the OVC. But I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for both of us in the law program and all the other programs you helped put on there with NCAA.
Absolutely. Tom and Stephanie, it was great to be on here, and just appreciate you all again for doing this podcast and really being creative through the process. I think it's been real cool to see and now be a part of. So I appreciate you all having me.
Awesome. Well, that will conclude this week's edition of the Laying the Leadership Foundation podcast. I'm Thomas Poole.
Stephanie Jurasik.
And we'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us this week on Laying the Leadership Foundation podcast. Be sure to subscribe and review this podcast wherever you listen. If you found value in this podcast, do us a favor and share this episode with someone else. As always, keep laying the foundation.